Hello and welcome to our Lunch and Learn webinar series where we tell you all about what's going on here at Compleat and how to get the most out of your iCompleat subscription. Today's session will cover the basics of invoice processing. Today we're excited to introduce Pearlscan as our Lunch and Learn sponsor. Pearlscan has a reputation for delivering high quality document scanning, digitalization, storage and shredding services that enhance workplace efficiency and reduce operational costs. By being part of the Compleat ecosystem, Pearlscan empowers businesses to modernize their day-to-day operations seamlessly. So today's agenda, we're going to be looking at invoice processing basics. We'll then go through a live demo and we'll then have a look at the Compleat ecosystem. Ordinarily, we would have a section for questions and answers, but obviously as this is a re-recording, if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us, either support or customer success, and we'll be more than happy to help. This is me, Darren. I'm a software implementation consultant and I've been with Compleat now for 7 years. So we're going to be looking at capture, or rather talking about capture. I will show you a tool, though, that will hopefully help you with the processing of invoices. Capture is the system that will be extracting the invoice information and sending a copy of that data and the invoice to your iCompleat system. And what we've got in the system is a portal where you can see what has been processed, what's currently being processed, and how long it took to process. So I will show you that one. We'll have a look at the unprocessed tray as well, and I'll show you some of the tools around there, including filtering and sorting. Also, how we can add columns in there as well. We'll then have a look at supplier mapping and its relationship to the capture system, and how supplier mapping will then open up the system for you to be able to apply defaults for the suppliers. So when a particular invoice comes in, it will default analysis and coding for you automatically. And then we'll have a quick look at manual matching of an invoice to an order as well. Now, some of the benefits of all of these things I'm going to be showing you include things like being able to process data faster. By using the supplier defaults, we can have the system code invoices up for us automatically and submit them automatically so that they don't have to sit in that unprocessed tray. They can just go out immediately to where they need to be. By using the sorting and filtering tools, you'll be able to get the information that you're looking for much faster. By using the filtering, you can keep all relevant information together, but I'll also show you how to add attachments as well so that you can keep copies of quotations and delivery notes, etc. Keep a copy of those attached to the invoice. And all of this is obviously designed to have less user interaction required so that you're spending less time on the mundane areas of an invoice. You can spend more time dealing with the problematic ones or indeed other tasks. So let's go and have a look at a brief demonstration of some of these things. So I've got my test system here. You may or may not have some of these tiles. Depends on the user access that you have been granted in your user profile. The first one we are going to look at is this invoices extracting tile. Now this is activated through your user profile. So if you need this tile and don't have it, just have a chat with your systems administrator and they'll be able to give you access to that through your user profile. What the invoices extracting tile does is it will open up a separate tab in a portal and it will show you what the system is currently processing. Now I've switched my filter up here to say processed because I've currently got nothing in the throes of being worked on at the moment. So I switched it to what has been processed, and you'll see that we've got one line per invoice that has gone in. If we view the attachment, we can see the attachment itself of the invoice, and we can see the date it was received, target extraction date. Now this is a key point to remember. So standard SLAs are that an invoice will be processed within a 24-hour period. Obviously, we strive to process them a lot quicker, and invariably 9 times out of 10 it's within a maximum of 4 hours. You can see the export created date sitting here. So for that reason, obviously just be mindful that if you have an invoice come in, it might take a while to process. Things that you can do to help an invoice being processed quicker through the capture system include things like ensuring that the suppliers are sending what's referred to as an intelligent PDF. And what I mean by that is if I had a PDF open and if I was to do this on the text, you can see the cursor is recognizing that these are individual characters. It will know that this is a number, that's a symbol, this is the letter P, etc. Now, if we're sending in intelligent PDFs, the system will be able to very quickly read them, find what it's looking for, extract the information. If I was to hover over the Compleat icon up here, I'm clicking the left mouse button, but nothing's happened. That's because this is a JPEG or an icon of some kind. It's a picture, basically. And so what the system would need to do, what Capture would need to do, is deploy its OCR technology. And it would then have to look at this and it would have to say, right, is that a letter? Is that a letter or a number? What's that? Is that, etc. So it would have to piece together each one individually and then put them together and see, does that make up a word, or is it a logo or a coffee stain or a smudge or what have you. So if bottom line is, if we're sending in intelligent PDFs, you stand a much quicker chance of having it processed very, very quickly. If it's a scanned image and there are areas on there that the system can't quite understand, it may take a bit longer. But again, it's all done within those very fast timelines as we are experiencing currently. Once the document gets processed, obviously it's then sent across to iCompleat, and you'll be able to then process it through the system. So I'm going to go to my invoices tile, and within here I have all of my invoices that are currently sitting there processed tray, awaiting to be processed. So some of the tools that we have around here include things like using these 3.assist buttons. We can click on them and we can sort. So you can see we've got a little arrow saying we're sorting there. We can click and then sort descending. You can also just click on the name of the column as well. Now, key thing to remember here is that some customers have experienced that the sorting doesn't quite appear the way they're expecting. And 9 times out of 10, it's because they've sorted on one column, but then gone straight forward and sorted on another column. And as you can see, I'm sorting descending here, and I'm not seeing my numbers in a descending order. But it's because the filter has been retained here. If I cycle through over on the invoice date to remove the filtering on there, you can see my invoice numbers is now filtering correctly. So do watch out for that. And as you saw, clicking multiple times will cycle through the options, ascending, descending, and off. The other option we have is we can drag our columns to where we would prefer to see them. So we're not forced to have it in this view. We can move our columns around. We can also add or remove columns. So if I go to the 3.assist button down to columns, you can see these are all the columns available, and I just simply tick to say which ones I can and cannot see. One of the new columns that has been added is the layout. So if you are using multiple layouts, you can add that layout into here, and then you could filter, for example. From the 3.assist button, you also have the filter option here. So we've got contains equal to starts ends. Pop in the criteria and filter, and that will return the data for you. So you'll notice on here, obviously we've got our columns, just these ones at the end here, which sometimes get missed. So this one is denoting that there are attachments. So by default, an invoice will ordinarily have 2 attachments, one being a copy of the email and one being the invoice itself, and I'll show you where to find those in a moment. I've also got a notes function as well, denoted by here. If I click onto there, you can see the notes that were added. So holding and checking on pricing with Bob, with red telephone, and then price checked, okay to process with the green thumbs up. I can add another note down here. I can then add a new icon and choose a color, and that will, if I then add a note, that will stamp that against the transaction. And if I refresh, just by going across to a different tab, you can see that's now updated with my new icon and my new note. Hovering over it will show you the latest note. Clicking on it will show you all of the notes. We then got a column here for the piggy bank. So piggy is denoting bank details. So if you are storing your bank details against the supplier record and that's been cached into iCompleat, and if the suppliers provided their bank details and they've been successfully exported off of the invoice, then iCompleat will do a comparison between the two. Fraudulent checking, just to make sure that different bank details haven't snuck in somewhere. Grey means that they are not present and can't be checked. You can see hovering over gives the note here. Red or pink, piggy, indicates that there's a problem, and green indicates that everything's all fine. You can have the system route anything where there is a bank validation failure. It can route to a separate approver, and that's all done through the behavior settings in the admin and config side. And then lastly, you'll notice that we've got a C here where it's denoting a credit note, so you can easily identify those straight away. You may also see an R, which is for returned, and a D, I think, which is for previously deleted. Off the top of my head, those are the ones I can remember. There are some more, but hovering over them will tell you why that has appeared. So what we are going to do is just pop into an invoice. We'll pop into this one here for Techo Drive. And what some of you will, well, what you will find if you're processing an invoice is when an invoice has been received from a brand new supplier that you've never seen before, it will be asking you to map that supplier. So if I try and replicate that here, I don't think it'll let me because it's already been mapped. But what would happen is you'd have a red banner up at the top and it would telling you that requires validation, supplier requires mapping. To do that, what you would do is go to edit. You would then choose the supplier from here. Now, the reason it's asking for that is all linked to the capture system. So capture predominantly works from the email domain that the invoice has been received from. So if it receives an invoice from the domain diy.com, it knows that that's B&Q. It will send that invoice down to iCompleat with a note saying this has come from diy.com. However, in your finance system, you may have the supplier down as Trade UK. You might have B&Q. You might have just DIY without the .com. You might have DIY Limited. Whole different boatload of reasons. But what we have to do is we have to map. We have to tell the system, yes, when I get an invoice that's come from DIY.com from Capture, that's mapping to my Trade UK supplier that I have in my finance platform. If we do that mapping just the once, the system remembers it, and that's what's happened here. What would then happen is this Apply Defaults button will then appear. And if I click on Apply Defaults, what that will do is that will allow me to set the defaults for that particular invoice. So I can tell the system when the system receives another invoice from, in this case, Techo Drive, then I would like the account code to be set to a particular account code, the department code, cost center, any of the analysis that I am currently using on my layouts. Now, I think I've picked a wrong time to start recording this. I'm just trying to get my system to refresh. There we go. Back into the invoice, back to edit. I think I timed out somewhere along the lines. But if I go to apply defaults, let's just redo that. Apply defaults. There we are. So it's then asking the next time the invoice is received, what would you like the stock? The account code to be. I've set it to stock. Now, notice I've got a selection of where I have set them and where I have not. So what the system would do in this instance is it would set the account, set the currency, set the tax, but then leave all of these blank and leave them for me to finalize and pop in myself. This is the important one if you really want to get the automation in the system. So especially when it comes to invoice matching, the system can have it so that the invoice will inherit all of the coding that was put onto the order. So you can get the situation whereby the invoice comes in, reads the order number, automatically matches, picks up all of the analysis and the account codes, etc., automatically applies that, knows which workflow to go to, and so it will do an auto match, it will auto code, it will auto submit. Key thing to get the auto submit is to select this workflow from here. So setting a workflow, it will know that it needs to go to that workflow. It will only go to that workflow if everything on the invoice has been fulfilled. So if all the coding has been provided, and if it all balances, and if there's no rounding errors according to the variances of the layouts tab. Once we've got those in, we can save. It's then going to go and look for any other invoices that it now deems as coming from Teco Drive, and you can see update completed successfully, one transaction updated. If I go back to the summary, you can see it's now applied my account code. So that is the supplier mapping. When we are in the invoice itself from the summary screen, we do now have control over these columns here. So again, you'll notice we've got the 3.assist button. We can add or remove the columns. We can filter on a particular column. We can now set column position as well. So there's a new feature here called lock column. And so if I go to my account code and if I lock column, what it does is it takes the account code from the far right hand side and moves it to the far left. So it's the first column that I see. So if it's ordinarily the case that I am going through and just having to apply the coding, I can have those columns moved to the very front so I can just get straight on. I don't have to scroll across. If we want to change them back, we can we can click on the 3.assist and reset, and that moves them back. You can also manually drag and drop to where you'd like the columns to be as well. Obviously, keep an eye out for these red exclamation marks. These are denoting that it's missing information, and hovering over it will tell you what information it requires. And in this case, it's telling us that we need the cost center and the department. So to code them, I can now go through the summary screen and I can click on the drop down and choose my code. Alternatively, I've got the option here for quick actions where I can select quick actions, select the cost center, choose the cost center that I want to apply it to, and then choose the lines that I'd like that applied to as well. Click apply and it will update all the lines like so. And then I could do the same for department as well. And obviously there's all of our departments like so. So that's the quick actions. If you find that the invoice, the lines haven't quite come across how you need them to, perhaps it's brought through one line and you need to break it out across multiple lines, you have got the ability to do that. Obviously, we can see the lines that are being extracted here. I can qualify that by clicking on this show invoice tag just on the left hand side, and that will bring the invoice across for me. But if I wanted to, let's say, break out this line here, I appreciate the value is quite exorbitant for a delivery, but it's just to highlight a change, or rather a difference between an order and an invoice, whereby carriage wasn't applied to the order. But if I go to edit, you'll find that across the top here we have an H for the header, and then we can click on lines 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can click on plus if I wanted to, and I can then go ahead and do whatever it is I need to. So let's say, for example, we are splitting our delivery cost out. Process it like so. So I've put an additional line for delivery cost. Now, if I go back to header, you'll notice that's now turned red because we are out of balance. So we've got these totals across the top here, which, if you like, are our goal totals. And then the ones down here, which are our current totals according to the sum of all the lines. And we can see we are overstated quite a bit. The totals up here need to equal the totals down here. If they don't, the invoice will need to be reprocessed. So just give support a shout and they'll be able to do that for you. But I know I added an additional or a fifth line saying that the unit cost here was 150 to break out the carriage, but what I didn't do was reduce it down here. So I'll just drop that figure down, click save, and you can see clicking on the header, it's now gone grey, it's happy, everything is balancing. We've just got to go and address the coding, and you can see here that it's requiring coding for the department. So I can either go through line by line like so, or I can go back to my summary and I can go through line by line here, or use my quick actions like so. So the other thing I can show you is header level extraction. Now I've got the situation here whereby I've got multiple lines on this invoice. And if it's the case that a supplier is sending multi-line invoice, but you only want to see the one line, you don't need to have all the breakout. You don't want to go through coding all of the lines, even with quick actions. What you can do is from actions, you can select header level extraction. Now I won't do it on this invoice because I need this invoice for part of the demonstration. But here we've got an invoice like so. And what I will do is, in fact, I will use this one. We'll use this invoice. I will go to actions, header level extraction. Do you want to apply header level extraction? Click yes, and that will shrink everything down just to the one line. It will then require you to do that coding on that new one line. Just to note, it can't be undone. So once it's done, it is done. You would have to, if it's been done in error, you would have to then go to the edit screen and manually add additional lines. Incidentally, whilst we're in here, something that some people do miss is in the edit screen, you do have the view of the invoice where we can see the invoice, and we've got the ability to download and print and zoom in, zoom out, etc. But clicking on this top bar here, you'll notice that there's a drop down. So it's saying invoice. And if we go down to supporting document, you can see it's brought a copy of the email. Obviously, it's my demo system, so it's not bringing anything too fantastic through, but you get the idea. If there are attachments, or there were attachments of the invoice, that's how you would access them. On the attachments side, you can also manually add additional attachments. So as I was saying before, if you've got any copies of quotations or details, additional information that needs to go with the invoice, you can, from actions, add attachments, choose the file to upload, and then you can analyze it as to what the file is. We've got these preset items here, or types, and then the attachment will show in here, and that will travel with the invoice and be accessible to anybody who is processing it. You'll also notice from the actions we've got the notes, so you can go to the notes from either the tray view or from the within the transaction itself. Transfer, this is if the invoice has been received into the wrong company. If you're multi-company, you can transfer it to a different company, or if it's come in as, let's say it's come in as a credit note, which should be an invoice, you can transfer it like so there, or if it was on the wrong layout, you could transfer it to a different layout if you've got multiple layouts. And obviously you've got a manual apply defaults. You've also got a delete option as well if the invoice was incorrect, but you can also delete an invoice from the tray view, hovering over the line, clicking on this icon, there's delete sitting there for you. So the next thing I'm going to show you is just the manual matching. So I've got an invoice that is sitting up here. So it's just come in and it's telling me that supplier requires mapping. So again, this is just highlighting this requirement for the supplier mapping. Now, this has also come in from Teco Drive computers, and I know that we did do the mapping on that previous example, but the reason it's asking again is because it has to be submitted to a workflow. So that's a key thing to remember, and that's what trips some people up. They'll map the supplier, apply defaults, and say, but hang on, I've had another invoice come in and it's asking me to map again. You need to have submitted it, because that's when it locks everything in completely. So the beauty of it is I can show you how to map a supplier. So I've gone in, selected Teco Drive. Now I've got the apply defaults, which were already sitting there. It's applying so on and so forth, and that is all good to go. What I'm going to do is go back to my summary screen because I want to match this invoice to the order. So because the system hasn't been able to do it automatically, reason being because it hasn't yet properly saved that mapping, so it doesn't quite know whose invoices it needs to go to, or look at rather. We're going to do this manually. So actions and matching info will bring up this window here. In fact, it doesn't look like it properly saved my mapping, so I'll just do that, and then we will go back to actions, matching, and there we are, find a PO. So I don't know if you saw that, but when I went to actions and matching info, it wasn't giving me these two buttons here. Apologies, I should have called that out at the time. The reason it wasn't giving those buttons is because, again, part of that mapping function. So all I did, again, because it's just the first time, as far as the system's concerned, that it's seeing an invoice from Teco Drive, I just went back to the edit and I clicked on save. As far as the invoice is concerned, it's got the supplier linked. It can now see whose orders it needs to go and review, and that's now giving us this perform matching and find a PO button. Do remember though, you do need to submit it in order for automation to work. Now the options I've got is perform matching or find a PO. So if I perform matching, it's not going to do anything because what it's doing is it's looking for the purchase order reference. You can see we haven't got a purchase order reference up here. If we look at the invoice, and if we can see a purchase order reference, which we can do here, then that's something that Capture needs to be realigned on. So pop a support call in, ask them to amend the template so that it's picking up the order number. That will ensure next time order number's automatically there for us. That would then mean that if I use this perform matching, it would do it automatically. Alternatively, I can find a PO that will then bring up a list of all the purchase orders that have been created and are awaiting to be matched. I can click on the line here, see the lines on the order, and I'm happy that's the one I want to match, so I'm going to click on it once. If you click on this hyperlink here, it will bring up a copy of the order itself, but I'm going to click anywhere else on the line to highlight it, click on match. What that's going to do is update the order reference here, link to go and view the order like so. And because I've manually matched, it hasn't brought across the coding yet. It will do that on a automatic match, but we can force it to come through. So what I'm going to do is actions, import PO lines. What it does is it breaks the screen out and it shows me the lines originally from the order. You can see where we have the coding. Click on the lines that you want to import, click on submit, and that will overwrite the invoice lines and bring in the lines from the order. And what you'll notice here is it's brought through those two lines. It is now telling us that we have a difference because if we look at the invoice would have had a delivery charge, which obviously wasn't accounted for when the order was raised. So what we need to do is just go and add a delivery charge line in. So same as before, go to the go to the edit screen, add a line, pop in the cost like so, pop in all the analysis, quickly get that coded up and click save, and everything is now fine. No red banners up at the top, totals are all matching, everything is fine. We do have a status of overmatch, obviously because the invoice is greater than the order, but that's because of the delivery charge, and obviously you'll have your own internal procedures as to whether something like a delivery charge would need to go for further approval or whether it would just go straight to the account system. But that is the manual matching. Obviously, if we wanted to undo that, we can go to Actions and Matching Info, and then we can undo match. And that will undo that match, and it will leave the coding on the invoice, but it will just clear out that purchase order reference, and we could go and do another match as well. And finally, just to let you know, we don't have to go through the invoice to do the matching. You can do it from the unprocessed tray. On the line of the invoice, click on here, little grid icon, and it gives you the same window like so. And that is manual matching. So hopefully those will help you in your using our system, so that you can get better automation, get things moving quicker, deal with problems that come up as well. And as I said, using those supplier defaults, if you, at least if you're not doing all of them, do as much as you can. Things like currency codes, etc. So at least it cuts down on the amount of work that that you do need to do. So just wanted to quickly mention the Compleat ecosystem. So it's our built-in supplier network that connects businesses with trusted providers across a huge range of industries. Whether you're looking for office supplies, financial solutions, or specialized services, the ecosystem makes it seamless to find, connect with, and buy from the best suppliers without all the usual hassle. And what you see here is just a small snapshot of the many suppliers available through our platform. And obviously a shout out to PearlScan, who have generously sponsored this session. So thank you ever so much for joining us. As I said, if you do have any questions, please feel free to log them with support, or if it's a more general kind of system related, implementation related, you can contact success@compleatsoftware.com. Just leaves me to say thank you ever so much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you on our next Lunch and Learn session. Many thanks. Bye.